You're connected to Atlantic Canada's Internet Sports Network, your source for sports on the South Shore.
And 2011 World Series champions, the Boston Red Sox. I know it's 2-10. We're 2-10, but we're still very hopeful. This is the oldest active ballpark in all of Major League Baseball. We've been playing ball here since April 20th, 1912. So next Wednesday we celebrate our 99th birthday here at Fenway Park. We've been playing baseball here so long that just 5 days before we opened, the Titanic sank in the Atlantic Ocean. This is not our first home. Our first home's about a mile behind all of you, where the campus of Northeastern University sits today. It's over there the Red Sox began play way back in 1901. We were known as the Boston Americans. We won the very first World Series ever played back there in 1903. The problem with that stadium, called the Huntington Avenue Baseball Grounds, is that it only seated 9,000 people, and we were regularly putting crowds of 19,000 inside. We needed a new park. This little plot of land in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston was available. We broke ground in September of 1911 and opened just 7 months later in April of 1912. I'm also proud to tell you we won the World Series that year. And then Red Sox fans know the story too well because we go on a roll after that. We won it again in 1915, again in 1916, again in 1918, skip ahead again in 2004. We took a small 86-year break to let the rest of baseball catch up, and we won it again in 2007 to prove that 04 wasn't a fluke. In 1915, 16, and 18, we were the best team in baseball because we had the game's best player. We had Babe Ruth here at Fenway Park, and it was his arm, not his bat, that made us the best team in baseball. He was the game's best pitcher before he was the slugger that you all know him to be. At the end of the 1918 season, Ruth goes up to our owner, his name was Harry Frazee, tells Frazee that he's tired of pitching, that he wants to try hitting, thinks he might be good at it. Frazee argues with Babe Ruth the whole season, never thinks this pitching thing's going to work out. At the end of 1919, he's had it with Babe Ruth. He puts him up for sale to the highest bidder, which then, just like now, is the New York Yankees. What most Red Sox fans don't know, though, is Frazee actually sold 15 other players from those World Series winning teams. 12 of those players went to New York, the other 4 to St. Louis, and all of this for a total of $125,000. Frazee takes this money and cranks it into the other thing in life he's passionate about. He puts on a Broadway musical with that money, a show called No No Nanette. Show of hands, anybody ever seen it? Yeah, 2 people, about as many people that saw it back then. The musical went nowhere. And for the next decade, so were the Red Sox. We finished last or next to last for the next 15 seasons, playing to an almost completely empty ballpark every night. In 1933, everything starts to change here at Fenway Park because a 29-year-old multimillionaire from South Carolina comes to town. His name is Tom Yawkey. Tom Yawkey and his wife Jean, they're multimillionaires. They earn their money the hard way. Mr. Yawkey inherited all his money when his parents died. And for his 30th birthday, he bought himself Fenway Park and the Red Sox for a then record $1.2 million. Not a bad birthday gift, if you don't mind me saying. Yawkey does 3 things that give Fenway its final shape. And even though we've made lots of improvements like where you are right now, you would still recognize the place today if the last time you were here was in 1934. The first thing Yawkey did is to your right, in center field, where those guys are spraying with hoses and they're laying down the tarps today because that's in the batter's backdrop during a day game. That section of green seats is called our bleacher section. And prior to Yawkey coming to town in the 30s, the bleachers was actually a completely separate building. If you were seated in the bleachers, you could watch the Red Sox play, but you weren't really here. And there were no restrooms or concessions out there. Yawkey bought that building and had the bleachers built to its current configuration. The next thing Yawkey does is actually immediately below all of you, but you can see it if you look to your left. Underneath the overhang of the roof, or the lower section of seats, is a ring of blue seats. The roof over the people's heads is the first of its kind in Major League Baseball, the first time fans had protection from the weather. And those blue seats that start below us, go behind home plate and all the way out to the left field wall, are still the original seats from the 1934 renovation of Fenway Park. It's called our grandstand section. Those seats are made out of oak. They're not exactly wide, and some of you will argue they're the most uncomfortable chairs in the world. I'm going to prove it to you. It's our last stop today. The last thing Yawkey does is he puts in what we're by far most famous for, our giant left field wall, probably the first thing you all looked at when we came in today. The Green Monster, as you know it today, prior to Yawkey, was this 15-foot high, steep, grassy incline. It was known as Duffy's Cliff, named after Duffy Lewis. He was our left fielder at that time. He was really good at running up the hill and catching fly balls. The problem is that in the 1930s, baseballs are new and improved. They're flying over the left field wall at record clips and into our neighbors' windows across the street. Tom Yawkey's getting bills in the mail for these damages. So he goes out to inspect for himself, sees something that surprises him even more. He sees families sitting on the hill on the other side of the fence, watching his team play without having to buy a ticket. His solution to both problems is that giant wall over there. It's the biggest overreaction in the history of baseball. 37 feet, 2 inches tall, 231 feet left to right. He covers it with a 30-foot tall screen to catch baseballs. The seats that we're going to a little later weren't there until 2003. He solved both problems at once. The wall wasn't painted green until 1947. You're looking at the color green that Mrs. Yawkey personally selected. She chose this shade of green because, according to her, it accurately matches the color of our grass. I'm glad you guys see it the same way I do. Not quite, right? If you think this color is great, you're a crazy Red Sox fan, you want to paint your son's room, your man cave, and your garage all this color. Here's what you do. You need to buy the Red Sox first. We own the copyright patent on it. It's made exclusively for us. So 1 gallon of Monster Green paint will cost you about $800 million. Good luck with that. One last...
And vice versa.
State Street Pavilion section here at Fenway Park. Who just wants to hang out and stay for the afternoon's game? Because these seem like pretty good seats. Not bad, right? For those of you that are running the marathon on Monday, the second tallest skyscraper, the shiniest one off in the distance, the kind of one that looks like all glass, that's your aiming spot. You'll start seeing it about 10 miles from home. It'll seem impossibly far away. The finish line is right next door to that. I like bringing my groups up here for a ballpark tour, because not only is it a great view of Fenway, but I think it's the best view of my city that I can give you without you having you on a boat out at sea. So get your cameras fired up and just keep shooting away. When we were on the right field roof deck a couple minutes ago, the last question asked me about the scoreboard. I told them to hit pause, so wherever you are, here we go. Our left field wall, the hallmark of it is the hand-operated scoreboard at its base. 3 guys get to work inside the left field wall. They get paid to keep score of the Red Sox game and out-of-town scores. Just by a quick show of hands, who thinks that'd be a pretty cool summer job? Okay, most of you would not be caught dead in there. Inside the wall, we might call them 1934 working conditions. There is no heat or air conditioning. The wall is made out of metal and brick, so it doesn't exactly stay warm when it's cold, and it doesn't exactly stay cool when the sun hits it in July and August. It's a good 20 degrees colder or warmer than it is outside on a typical cold or hot day. There's only running water if it rains. And I'll leave the rest of it up to you. There's only one way in and one way out of the wall. I'm going to try and give you directions. On the lower left part of the wall is a giant ad for W.B. Mason, where it says since 1898. To the right of 1898 are the words "at bat." Between 1898 and at that, you can barely make out the outline of the one and only doorway in and out. The silver doorknob is right next to the A and at bat. Once those three guys are in for the game, they're in there, whether the game lasts 2.5 or 5.5 hours. If they want to watch the game from inside there, go back to the words at bat with your eyes. Between at bat and ball, between ball and strike, you see those tiny black lines? Those are eye slits. Conveniently enough, they are not at eye level. 1 inch high, 16 inches across, and at about chest height. Those three guys have to scrunch over the entire game. No matter how bad I've made it sound, if you ever get the chance to go in there for a visit, you promise me you go, and you bring a Sharpie with you. Because the autographs of every Major League Baseball player that's played here at Fenway since the wall went up in 1934 are written on the concrete walls on the inside. That's almost 80 years of every Red Sox, every visitor, All-Star games, World Series, the Bruins hockey game here last winter, the concerts that we've had here at Fenway Park. Everybody who plays here at Fenway gets to write their name inside the wall. Last summer, I'm on a tour with somebody way higher ranking than most of you apparently. We got to go inside the wall for that tour. It was me, a father, and a son. I'm in there all by myself after they were done. Happened to have a Sharpie in my pocket and said, you know what, I'm going to write my name. The problem was that after almost 80 years, there's not a lot of good places left to write your name. So what I did, I'm completely proud of, but you have to promise not to tell everybody else. Just crossed out Derek Jeter. And I wrote my name right over his, but don't tell anybody. One more thing while we're up here. Back in the bleachers, all the way across from us now, I told you the bleachers was a separate building. If you look at the right edge of the green seats, you can see there's about a 20-foot gap between the bleachers and then the rest of the park where the red and the blue seats begin. That marks the gap between the two buildings in the mid-1930s. The space is still there. I want you to direct your attention, though, a little bit to the left of that. In the back of the bleachers is a giant advertisement for Ford. I want you to find the letter O in Ford, trace your eye down about 10 rows of seats, and tell me what you see. Yeah, there's a red seat out there amongst all the green ones. That red seat marks the landing spot of the longest home run ever hit here at Fenway Park. It was hit on June 9th, 1946, off the bat of Ted Williams. That red seat is 502 feet from home plate and hit a Yankee fan named Joseph Boucher right in the head. The Boston Globe reporter that was there that day tried to convince this guy, his name was Joseph Boucher, to convert, to see this as a sign from the baseball gods, that he should become a Red Sox fan. Anybody that can hit a ball that far, hits the only Yankee guy out there, this is a sign. The guy agrees to convert and agrees to raise his kids to be Red Sox fans, and they'll raise their kids to be Red Sox fans, and so the story goes. Most of you aren't from Boston, so I don't expect most of you to believe me. Quick show of hands who thinks most of that's not true. Okay, you're allowed to be skeptical. Two things you can look up. The first thing is the day after, June 10th, 1946, the day after the home run. The Boston Globe ran the story I just shared with you, along with a photograph of Joseph Boucher. He was holding the straw cap he was wearing that day in his hand and pointing at the hole in it that the ball went through. The headline writer that day wrote, "Bullseye! Ted Williams' blast knocks sense into Yankees fan." Everybody enjoying spring in Boston?
Beautiful.
It's actually quite nice compared to the winter. Last year, spring was on a Wednesday, and then we went right into summer. All right, everybody, welcome to our world-famous green monster seats. Where's my 8th grade algebra teacher? Where is he? Here he is. That's what I do in real life.
That's too bad for you.
Yeah. Welcome to our world-famous green monster seats, everybody. These were built in 2003. They replaced the net that used to catch home run baseballs. There's 279 seats up here on the wall, and every single one of them is allotted by ticket lottery, just like the ones up on the right field roof deck where we were about a half hour ago. These seats, if you win the lottery, you can buy up to 4 to 1 game. They're $165 a piece. Promise me if you're going to spend that much money on a baseball ticket, you get here 2 hours before the game starts, when the gates open. you can come up here to your seats and watch the Red Sox and visitors take batting practice from the Green Monster. A lot of you will think that that's actually better than the game itself. A ball flies up here onto the monster deck during batting practice on average about once every 40 seconds at speeds of around 100 miles per hour. Because people think they can catch a baseball while holding a hot dog, we actually have 4 EMTs that work up here during each and every home game, and they take care of the dozens of broken hands, fingers, wrists, and ribs, and they took care of this guy that I'll tell you the story right now. First year of the Monster Seats, 2003. We're playing the Minnesota Twins on a beautiful June night. First inning, our shortstop at the time, Nomar Garcia-Parra, is at the plate. Nomar hits a little line drive home run. He just scrapes over the top of the wall. The fan sitting in his front row Monster seat must have seen this baseball coming, but he had a hot dog in one hand and adult soda in the other. It's rehearsal.
Now that's a song.
A completely unrelated story. My grandmother's great-grandfather wrote this. You'll never need to know that again.
That is just too cool, man.
You guys are wearing a little bigger coats today than usual, like we do in April and October at the beginning and end of the baseball season around here. But if you were coming back for this afternoon's game, every single one of these chairs would be full. We sell out every game, every night, since May of 2003. Every single home game, 640 in a row. We have not missed one seat one night. So this row of seats, 24 seats wide, every chair is going to be full at 1:10 this afternoon. So if you're in the middle of this row, and you need to get up and go to the bathroom or get some food, every single person in your row needs to stand up. And every person in your row needs to stand up again to let you back in. Some people say the wave started here at Fenway Park, because if one person gets up, so does everybody else. These seats are a whopping 16 inches wide, 2.5 inches more narrow than the red seats a little more close to the front. So why don't we take these out and put those in? One, doesn't take a bath, you just figure out if you take out skinny seats and put in wider seats, there's going to be less of them. But the number is pretty startling. Almost 2,500 less seats here at Fenway in this blue section of seats all the way around the ballpark, if we ever replace them with the red wider seats. So money and giving fans access is probably the real reason. I like another reason better. They are part of the ballpark's history. And for people like me, a New Englander, our family's history. My 91-year-old grandfather sat in these seats the year they were new, in 1934. He was 14 years old. My wife and I had a baby girl 7 weeks ago tomorrow. She's coming to her first game on Father's Day. Guess where our seats are? Right here in these blue seats. 4 generations of my family have and will continue to sit here. So these seats are going to stay. I call them the best bad seat in all of baseball. Because even though we're in the back of the ballpark and your knees are already killing you, look how close you are to the field. They say Fenway's intimate, that the fans are on top of the action. We don't make that up. By square footage, we have the least amount of foul territory of any stadium in Major League Baseball, which means physically you are closer to the field of play than you are at any ballpark in the majors. If you were here last Sunday, sitting in these seats, and we were playing the New York Yankees, and you want to yell at their third baseman, go ahead, he's right there. You'll hear every word of it. Yell at him the entire game if you want to, it won't bother me at all. The fans in left field, in those left field stands, used to have conversations with Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski, because we didn't have a ton of people here in the 50s and 60s until everything started to happen around 67. They used to talk. Manny Ramirez in 2003, playing left field, didn't know where the voices were coming from. We just put seats on top of the wall. He had no idea we had people up there, but he could hear them talking. If you're in the front row behind home plate, you're actually 6 feet closer to the batter than the pitcher is. So you are literally on top of the action here at Fenway Park. These seats are going to stay for a long time.
Yeah.